with that, let's get started. Why UX designers get rejected. Hot button topic, right? So I'd like everyone to kind of realize that your first project is really going to be about you and for you, but it's a little counterintuitive, right? So when we're trained as designers, we're trained to be empathetic, right? We're trained so that our work is for our users, right? It's for our customers, it's for our audience. But our materials, our portfolios don't always reflect that, right? It's a little counterintuitive because it's not supposed to be. Your portfolio, your resume, these things are products and they have an audience as well, and they need to be tailored and designed as such, right? And there's this belief that once you learn the skills of a job, then you have all you need to get a job. And I'm sure a lot of you know by now that is not true. And so there is a skill and there is a pathway to get a job. There are some things that you should and should not do. And we're going to talk to quite a bit of that, right? Also, this won't take very long. This portion right here shouldn't take very long. I know most people get a lot out of these kinds of calls when we get to their questions in the Q&A at the end. So forgive me if I'm speeding through this, but that's kind of on purpose. Okay. So as someone who spent quite a bit of time interviewing, I've had many jobs. I know what it's like to be a candidate. I just recently took a new job, so I was on the candidate side again. I know that as a candidate, interviewing is stressful. It takes a ton of time, and you can go through so much of it and get nothing from it, right? I know what that's like. But I'd like you to think for a moment what it's like on the other side, right? Now, as a manager, I can tell you what it's like on the other side of the table for those folks who are interviewing you. As a hiring manager, interviewing is stressful. It takes a lot of time. We can spend so much time on candidates and actually end up not hiring someone. You have to tell someone no. So we understand what you're going through. And there's one thing that I think a lot of folks kind of miss, and that is we want you to succeed. Right? We want you to get that job. We don't want to spend weeks and weeks trying to find the right person to join our team. We want the best person, and we really want you to make it there. So keep all this in mind as you're putting your materials together. And with that, let's jump on in. So the first thing is going to be a poorly executed resume. And these are things that I'm seeing quite a bit of. When you use really small fonts, right? When you have really tight spacing, when you ignore your contrast for doing things like having a very light gray against white, which is a trend that I've seen now for some reason. When you have a layout or a lot of design that looks really colorful and really playful, these things don't really help you. This is a very exaggerated sample that I found online, but I've actually seen resumes pretty close to this, right? And what this person is trying to do is stand out. And this resume does stand out, but it stands out in the wrong ways, right? It draws attention from everything that we really need to be paying attention to. Things like these progress bars and these extra icons and graphics, they don't help you. They don't help you. They don't give the interviewer what they need to know about you, which is your background and your skills. Right? Your resumes are not meant to be designed. We don't design resumes. We write resumes. And if you're not keen on writing resumes, then there's nothing wrong with that, because I'm really not either. Hire it out. There's nothing wrong with that. Pay someone to do it to help you with it. I did want to mention also that a poorly executed resume may not necessarily get you eliminated, but I'll tell you what it does do. We had someone submit a resume similar to this, and my boss and I were going over this. And after taking a look, my boss's immediate reaction was, okay, I'm already not liking this candidate. Let's see what his portfolio looks like. So what that meant was his portfolio was going to have to do double duty. Right? It was going to have to be twice as good as it probably needed to be, just so they could recover from this kind of super creative resume. So keep that in mind. A really good, effective resume is actually quite boring, and that's okay. That's what it's supposed to be. And I'm probably going to make some enemies with this, but that's all right. Y'all know I don't pull punches. When you use Behance or Dribble or some other thing that is really not meant for a interactive kind of design portfolio, you are really hurting yourself. Okay, especially the folks who do this, where they have this very long, it's one single image and it's this very long scrolling thing we have to kind of scroll through. that is not a good place. That is not a good look for you as a UX designer, right? Considering that here's what you're doing, right? A long scrolling image is not accessible, right? It's not usable. You're breaking basic browser functions in that you can't search. You can't use the text zoom without it getting blurry. There's no hierarchy or order of importance, right? You can't, it doesn't work with assistive technology. These are things that you don't want to be showcasing as a UX designer if that's what your goal is, right? So getting your own domain or getting a free low or no code platform to put your stuff on is there are other viable options better than using something like this. So please consider that. I spoke out about this on LinkedIn, and I ruffled a few feathers, but I stand by this as well. When you have your case studies on your portfolio that are really, really long, they're really, really in depth, and they're really comprehensive, we're not reading all of that, right? We're just not going to do it. What we're looking for when we look through your case studies, when we look through your work, is what was the problem you were trying to solve? Can you just highlight that? Just tell us about the problem. What were the challenges surrounding the project? We know you had product problems. We know you had to figure out layouts and colors and buttons and that kind of thing, but that's not really what we're interested in. We really want to know, did you have deadline challenges? Did you have challenges with your colleagues, with your senior leadership, right? Did you have something change at the last minute? These are the kind of things that we want to ask, that we want you to talk about, and that we want to see in your case studies, because the solution can change, right? There's a saying like, don't be so involved with the solution, right? We just want to know what the real problem was, and please talk to us about that. Okay. Give us bits of the story to get us interested. Okay. This is another one that I'm seeing. And please remember that your UX portfolio is not an art project. This is another way candidates can really find themselves getting eliminated faster than they probably realize. Okay. Now, there's nothing wrong with you injecting a bit of your personality, things that you like about yourself in your portfolio. But we have seen portfolios where there's literally 1 or 2 UX projects, and then there's like 20 illustration and art and design and photography projects, and some even throw in some vacation photos. It doesn't make any sense. That's not the purpose of your portfolio. And some of you may not know, right? A online portfolio, if you think about what a physical portfolio is, it's like a book that you hand someone and you show them your work. So if you were an artist or a photographer and you're speaking to a director and you want them to see your work, you hand them their portfolio. And if they're going through your work, and then all of a sudden in the middle of it, you've got your vacation photos and your fishing photos, and they're asking, what's this for? And they'll hand the thing right back to you, right? It's the same thing, right? Keep your work separate from your personal stuff. If you want to have an online presence for your hobbies and your drawings and things like that, there's no rule that says you're limited to one website, right? Get as many websites as you want, but make sure that when you're trying to get a job, that hiring team can find your work and they can focus on your work, because that's what they're really there for. Okay. And please don't use bad language, and don't wear your political affiliation on your shoulders on your website. It's a turn off, right? The person that's looking at your stuff may even agree with you, but they're just not going to be comfortable talking with you. So please avoid doing that. We had to go through that very recently. Next, I want to talk about having zero exposure to design systems. All right. Now, notice I said exposure, not experience. Okay. If you're a junior, you probably get a pass for not having any hands-on experience working with a complicated design system. But you should still have a solid understanding of what they're for. And they're not just for colors and fonts. Right? I want everyone to realize that. Please get familiar at least with Google's material design and Apple's HIG, right? Just look that up, read how they go so far in depth about the implementation, about the design philosophy, right? And the design rules. Learn that and understand that a design system is a very key tool to staying in step with the development team, right? If you can say that, if you can speak to some confidence in that, even if you've never done it, that's going to score you some major points with whomever you're interviewing with. And a lot of teams today, a lot of big companies have their own design systems, and a lot of them are free and available to use on the internet. Just find them. If you're applying somewhere, again, you will score major points if you familiarize yourself with them. Okay. Accessibility. Talk about this for a moment. Accessibility is not just contrast. And a lot of people assume that it is. Okay. Accessibility makes up a major part of what we do beyond what a lot of folks initially think. Okay. This is not something that you will get a pass on even as a junior. So accessibility includes things like your copy, like what exactly are you saying, the formatting and structure of your website or your application, the paragraph length, the space between the sentences, the voice, the actual tone that you're using to speak to your audience, the focus order and interactive order of your elements, the consistency of pages between one section or one area of your layouts to another. All of these things make up what we consider making your application accessible. So read these things and familiarize them. Check out w3c.org. There's a wealth of information there, and understand that when we ask how do you work accessibility into your designs, we're not just talking about double and triple A color contrast. It's a lot more than that. Okay, next is being too focused on design details. Okay, be obsessed with the problem and not the solution. This is related to what I mentioned earlier about these super long case studies. This is very similar to that. When we want you to talk about your project, we are not interested in your buttons and your colors and your fonts. That doesn't tell us much about how you solve problems. We want to know what was the real issue. Like, what did you learn, and how did you approach and design for what you learned? These details can and will change, and they change all the time, right? But your approach to problem solving is what really interests us as design managers. So don't focus so much on this, especially when you're talking to someone. You will have plenty of time to do this, and you will have plenty of time to iterate through this. But we really want to know from a QA perspective, what were you really trying to solve, and keep it high level. Okay, being long-winded. I remember ruffling some feathers on this one too, but I'm going to stand my ground again and explain a little more about what I meant here. This is one of those things where people feel that it's not so important for their job, right? If they classify themselves as a talker or a rambler, and that is categorically not true. Okay. We often see this when we have candidates who really don't know the answer to something, but they're trying to talk it out of themselves. And so they just keep talking. And then hopefully they say what it was we're trying to hear. And if you're prepared for an interview, you shouldn't have that problem. Okay. And when you're talking a lot, and something that we've had to do is we have to interrupt you. That is something that no one really likes to do. We hate having to interrupt, especially a candidate, because that's already a stressful situation. We know the position you're in. It's awkward for everybody. So it's more awkward for us when we have to say, I need to interrupt you and reframe the question to see if I can get a better answer out of the person, right? And remember, you don't have a lot of time for an interview. So practice being brief, right? Practice just getting to the point. Okay. Practice highlighting the problem and the result, right? Again, the result doesn't really matter, but you do want to be able to highlight and talk about where you got. All right. Just be able to get to the point and explain the impact of the result. Okay. You will have to do this kind of thing regardless of how you feel about being a long-winded or a talkative person. You will have to manage this in your day-to-day job, right? You will have to talk to people who are engineers or who are product owners, who are senior executives. You will talk to people who have no idea of what it is you do. And so getting into the details is not going to help them one single bit. You're also going to work and talk with people who don't care what you do and don't necessarily like working with designers, right? You'll come across that. So being too into those long details and not being able to get to the point, those aren't going to work in your favor. So be able to answer succinctly and let the person respond. Now, admittedly, I had some trouble kind of naming the slide, but what I was getting at here for not improving and not owning it, meaning that we all have things to work on. And when you can own up to that, right, this shows not only a very high level of self-awareness, but you never know how this can connect you with the person you're talking to. And so that interviewer may have struggled with the same thing, and they can help you overcome it, right? When you're talking about your weaknesses, this is what this is about. And they can appreciate that you're on a similar path. Or a lot of larger companies have training programs. They have things that they can set you up if you've identified something that you need help with. They can set you up and get you training on that, right? You just never know. So don't skip this, and just remember that. This is another question that people kind of rebel against. That's so stupid. Why do people ask you what your weaknesses are? Well, it's because of the sentence right here, what I've said at the bottom, right? Managers trust people who are self-aware, right? That's how you get additional work. That's how you get high priority work. That's how you get really good portfolio level work, right? When managers trust you. So keep that in mind, and keep that in mind when they ask you this. What are your weaknesses, or what are your areas of improvement? There are two things that they're looking for, right? It's a two-part answer. They want to know what is the thing, what is the area that you can improve on, and do not forget to tell them what you are actually doing to try and make that improvement. Right? If you don't tell them the second part, you don't get credit for the first one. Okay. Assuming the company is one big team. This is something we run into all the time. And this, again, comes from being ill prepared. And a company is a collection of teams. The folks that you're interviewing with is going to be part of a small team within that company. And it really helps to know what that team is experiencing more than the company is experiencing. For example, we had a candidate come in and ask a number of questions about how the company website is managed, via a content and management perspective, the pipeline for content approval. These were excellent questions, except our team didn't do that, right? That's not what we worked on. And I honestly couldn't even tell you who does, right? The company is massive. So that candidate could have known that if they had just asked that to the recruiter, because the recruiter was their touch point before they got on those calls. So be very mindful of, yes, we work for a company, but that team needs you for a reason. And you need to understand what that reason is and tailor your questions in your interview for that team. I feel like I really shouldn't have to say this, but here we are. Pay attention when you're interviewing. Okay. Aside from having folks who are very clearly distracted by their phones or smiling and goofing around with someone off camera, we've seen these kinds of things. Paying attention will help you ask better questions when it's your turn to ask questions. You should go into your interviews with a handful of questions that you pre-prepared. You absolutely should do that. But also be prepared to deviate from that plan, because oftentimes questions will get answered through the course of the interview and you'll have to readjust. When we interview candidates, we open the call by telling them about ourselves. We tell them about our team culture, right? We tell them about how we get our work done, the nature of the work, and our design and implementation pipeline. We tell them how we collaborate. We tell them the problems that we're having and that we're facing and why we brought them in. And we tell them about we give them a little bit of a personal take on why they're there or why we're there. And then we went through the interview And then he asked us, okay, well, can you tell me about the company culture? Right? Which is, that in itself is a pretty weak question, but we literally stated all of that when the call started, right? So he had his list and he was dogmatic about staying to his list, and it just ended up hurting him because he didn't ask really good questions. Okay. And being a poor storyteller, this is a pretty big thing when it comes to UX, right? When you interview, everything that folks ask you, all the questions, they're going to have different areas of weight, so to speak, of what's more important than the other. Being a poor storyteller is probably going to have more weight than something like, tell me your areas of improvement, or tell me about a difficult coworker or something like that. If you can't organize your thoughts into a short, cohesive story, that is a red flag, because again, you will have to do this with folks who don't know anything about what we do in design. And as a UX designer, that job is very, very visible. You are generally the highest visible person on the team from a organization perspective. So learn and practice the STAR method. If you haven't heard of that, it means situation, task, and result. Please look it up if you have not heard of that. Or you can try what I came up with here, which is state the answer, tell a short story, and then state the answer again. Okay. So for example, Corey, what's your favorite color? Oh, I love this question. My favorite color is red. To me, red means intensity, right? Fury, uncontrolled passion, and drive. It also means luck and good fortune. For years, I even owned a 2015 Dodge Challenger SRT, true story, and that I may or may not have done some street racing in. So that's easily why red is my favorite color. So again, you state the answer, tell a very short story, state the answer again. There you go. Answer sandwich, or Sanswich, but that's terrible. I'll figure out a name for it, but you guys get it. That'll help you keep you from rambling. Okay. Be flexible. You don't want to sound robotic. Okay. I want to relate one story about this again. We recently interviewed a candidate who was applying for a mid-level UX position, and she was doing well for most of the interview. And we got to the point where we asked her to show us her portfolio, show us a project from her portfolio. And we asked her very specifically, tell us about problems with the project, right? We want to know about problems with the extended team, deadlines, these kinds of things. Like, we want to know about the project, not the product. And she struggled here, right? She had a deck prepared to go through, and she was all set and prepared. But that little twist of telling her exactly what we wanted, she wasn't prepared for that. And she managed to get through it. It took her a bit. She struggled. She was very uncomfortable. She was visibly uncomfortable, and she kind of stumbled through it, but she ended up eventually telling us what we wanted to hear. So she recovered for the most part, but she was really fighting to get there. And when we were ready to close, and we were saying our pleasantries, thanks for coming and such. Just before we closed the call, she said, "Can I just say one more thing? I want to thank you guys, because I had learned something from this interview. I learned I need to get better with my storytelling and be mindful of who my audience is. And I think I can do better. So I really appreciate this." And it was my boss and I who were interviewing her, and we were kind of taken aback when she said that. We weren't expecting. We didn't tell her anything like that, but she recognized that and she said it. When she dropped from the call, my boss and I immediately said, "Make her an offer." That's the kind of person we want on our team, right? It was such a enormous, just to see someone who was so self-aware with about 2 years of experience. It was super rare and it was super refreshing. We absolutely loved it. We said, yeah, we want her. And we made her an offer the same day. Okay, and the number one reason UX designers get rejected is very simply not being prepared. So, just about everything I've covered could technically fall under preparation, but these are some of the things that can really put you off from a hiring team. Right? Not asking good or relevant questions, right? It's really obvious when you're asking generic questions that don't relate to the role and don't relate to the team, right? There are ways to formulate specific questions from a list of generic ones if you've practiced that and you prepared, but you have to be paying attention to do that, and you have to care, right? It's really important to care. Not having work ready to share. If you're taking a call via Zoom like this or whatever, be prepared to pull up your work. Even if you weren't told ahead of time that you need to do that, be prepared to do that. It stalls the interview when you have to go hunt for your work, or it's on another computer and you don't have access to it. It can also put you over, right? It can put you in a really good way when you pull up your work and just to answer a question, right? You can be in the middle of a sentence and say, you know what, let me just show you. And pull up something and show the interviewer. You get major points for doing stuff like that. Right. Joining a video call from a phone. I shouldn't have to say that. This is another big thing. We share. You can't share your work from a phone. You can't follow anything the interviewer might be sharing if you're on a phone. You work from a computer. Take your interviews from a computer. Okay. Not being familiar with your own previous work. So if you're asked a question, I think it's pretty reasonable to expect that you'll be able to answer something about your own work. And if you can't, that's a problem. That's a red flag. That shows us that you're not really invested in the work itself. And disregarding that there is a business to support. So if you are interested in a company because you believe in their mission or you believe in their products, that's fine. But just remember, that company has to have revenue in order to do anything, including paying you to care about it. And so you are expected to advocate for the user. You are expected to be user focused. You are expected to make everything that you design intuitive and user friendly, but not at the detriment to the company. Right? If there's no company, there's nothing to do. Right? No mission, no money, no mission. Right? So make sure that you are serving your colleagues as well as your customers. Okay. So that brings me to the end of this portion. And when it comes to your employment journey, right, there are a number of things that we can't control, right? We can't control hiring freezes. We can't control jobs being rescinded. We can't control the market. We can't control who you're interviewing that day. That person may have a reputation of being the absolute nicest person in the company to talk to, right? But you don't know, right? That morning, her cat might have thrown up in her shoe, right? You just don't know what's going to happen, right? There's so much out of your control. Everything that I've shown you today, 100% of that is in your control. And as mentioned, these are things that we've had to pass on candidates for. So don't allow yourself to fall into this. Now, there is more. For those who follow me on LinkedIn, I committed to adding an additional topic to this one, and I'm checking the time and we should be good. I wanted to talk about what about before all of this? Because I'm sure there's a lot of folks who probably said, or maybe they've said in the chat, I can't get anyone to talk to me anyway, right? So none of this even applies to me. So I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you how to better your chances to get folks to talk to you. Okay. So now what you're about to see is slides from a talk that I did recently for another small audience. I did not redo these slides to match the theme that you just saw. So there's going to be this jarring change in theme. So please bear with that. Also, these new slides are kind of low budget, but bear with me. Okay. I think the message is sound. So the next topic I want to talk about is getting LinkedIn on LinkedIn, which is a terrible title for a presentation. I own that. I was not feeling very inspired that day, but I'm in too deep now and I'm going with it. So y'all stick with me for it. Just to level set, I did not invent what you're about to see. And this also should not take long. So I have no problem sharing this, for free. I've seen other coaches share the same information, and I've seen folks talk about it in LinkedIn posts. So if you have seen this and you're not doing this, then hopefully this reinforces why you should. All right. So bearing in mind that when you're out on the job hunt, the odds are not in your favor, right? They absolutely are not. Doing things in hard mode, which is basically applying to every single job that you think you're qualified for and hoping for the best. There are a number of things contributing to what makes that difficult. And I want to talk a little bit about those. The first one is the prevalence of artificial intelligence and applicant tracking system, right? They are used throughout many hiring pipelines. Many of them are run on rules, in particular, like ATSs. They are run on these very rudimentary rules, right? And it makes it very difficult to get past them, like to look for a specific keyword on your education, right? So the system could be mapped to look specifically for Bachelor of Science in Engineering. And your resume, it'll reject your resume if it says BS ENG, which that is BS, but that is how it works. Okay. So what I have here is a snippet from an article that's detailing just how flawed and biased these systems are, but they are still in high use. Okay. So depending on your socioeconomic background, depending on if you're a woman, these things not only try and decide if you're the right person for the job right now, but are you going to continue to be the right person for the job 5 years down the line? Right? That's how AI is getting into the mix now. And there are a lot of companies that are using them, and they don't have to be transparent about it. Right? They don't have to be very upfront about it. And this has been going on for a while. It is pretty much set now, and it's a part of our new, I guess, society for what it takes to have a complete hiring pipeline. And AIs are a big part of it now. And apparently it's okay. So what I'm seeing is that probably within the next couple of years, that Skynet is going to be all up in our business. And we're going to have Terminators looking up our resumes to determine if we're right for the job. And I guess it's going to be okay. The other reason is there are so many people who are new to UX, right? And so many people wanting to upskill themselves over the last couple of years. So, things have gotten trendy, so to speak. People are transitioning from other careers. Boot camps are big on the rise. And so what that's given us is this huge pool of entry-level candidates and not a lot of entry-level jobs. I'm sure a lot of the folks on the call know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, there are many job platforms for your sanity's sake, and for this, just to be, I can't stress this enough. I mean, in the name of Princess Zelda, if you please do not put your resume or create a profile on like monster.com or Career Builder or Dice or any of these other platforms. You will get such an ungodly amount of spam, and you will get calls all day and night from people that are offering you stuff that you don't qualify for or don't even care about. Just use LinkedIn. I'm going to show you why to stick to LinkedIn right now. So I'm going to break from these slides for a second, and I'm going to show you in real time what I'm talking about. Let's see. Make sure I got the right window. Okay, I should be seeing LinkedIn on my screen right now. So I'm going to go through, for a second, I'm going to go through what I look for and what I do when I find something that I'm interested in. First caveat to understand is to make the most out of LinkedIn, you need to pay for it. Right? Just to be upfront about that. LinkedIn has, I think, 2 paid tiers, one being like if you're looking for employment, and the other one is like a business tier. when I was on the market, I paid for the business tier. I paid for the more expensive one. And that is because of the number of emails that you get and the level of searching that you can do for people. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So the purpose of all of this is to, when you see a job that you're interested in, you don't just apply for it. You need to find someone that is connected to or related to that job or that company in some way that you can get into contact with. And then you move on from there. So let me show you. For this one in particular, one of the first things, it is really important to please read the job description very carefully. Okay. So what I have here, this one actually tells you this job is hosted by this person. So what I would do if I was interested, now this says easy apply. When you see easy apply, just use it. There's no reason to not use it, easy apply. But I would not stop there. I would copy this person's name, look them up here. Make sure I've got people checked. Hopefully I can find this person. And here she is, principal recruiter at JoBot. So I would click on her profile and send her a message. Now, again, if you don't have a paid subscription to LinkedIn, you may not see this message button. You may just see connect. And why that limits you is that you can't send a substantial message when you just connect with someone. Okay, so that's that one. That was easy. Here's another one. Again, if you have a paid subscription, you will see things like this. So this is the person, they're telling you, quite frankly, here's the person to talk to, and you can message them right here. Okay, that's another way. One more, actually, let me look at a different one. So here's one that's a little different. I want to be very careful and show you exactly how to maneuver when you see a button that says apply and it goes out to their company site. So what I'm looking for, if I go to their company portal and I look through this and, hey, maybe I want to work for PlayStation and can finally get a PS5. And when I'm looking for what their application looks like. So this one is very simple. I would do this. I would apply to this job using this form, but I would not stop here. When you go back on this page, you want to find the link to the company first. Then go to the People tab. Hey, Amy, I'll catch up with you later. When you click on People, LinkedIn is going to serve up people in this company that it thinks are close to your job title or your location or a mixture of both. Right? So what I'm looking for is someone who might be in a hiring position here, which again is why it's really important to read the job description, because sometimes they'll tell you in a job description, if they don't say to someone's name, they might say this position reports to such and such title, right? Managing director or whatever. So I'm seeing senior designers, lead designers. If I kept looking, I'm not sure. So what I would do here is in this field, you can search, and I'm going to assume they have director roles. So I'm just going to search for director here. Okay, director of product. Someone who works in product management might be a good option for you. So I would keep that in mind. Experience director, maybe. Let's see what this guy does. So I'm going to open his profile. Okay. So what I'm looking for when I check someone's profile, are they active? Have they been using LinkedIn for a bit? Do they have a fair number of connections? So this person might be the one I talk to, but just to be sure, I'm gonna look a little more. Check it out. Okay, Senior Director of UX. That's something, and I'm hiring. Okay, this looks very promising. He's got a lot of connections. He was very active. He just posted something a week ago, and look, he's talking about hiring designers. I'm digging into this one now. He left a comment. I've hired designers, both agencies. Many of the agency designers I passed on were missing keys. So this guy is actually telling you what he's looking for with folks that he hires. This is absolute gold, right? If you were interested in this role, you want to talk to Jason Chan, you would message him, and you might want to mention something about what he's talking about here, right? This is all you need to get into the hiring manager's purview and be considered for this kind of role. Okay. So again, I would do that in addition to applying for the job directly. All right. Hope everybody caught that. I'm going to go through one more. This one's a little bit different. So if I was interested in working for Harley-Davidson and I clicked on their apply button and I go to their portal and I click on apply, and I see that they want me to create an account and put in my email address and create a password. That is an absolute no. You never, ever do this when you see this. Never, ever apply like this when you see this. Okay. I want you to go back and do exactly what I just showed you. You find someone who works here. Let's go to people again. Let's see, lead UX, experienced designer, global director. So no one's vice president of styling and design. I don't know what that is. Let's see if this is a good guy. Okay, so he is not active on LinkedIn and he has a low number of connections. I would not contact this person. And I'm being careful about who I contact because the number of emails you get to use from LinkedIn, it's limited, right? You have a limited number. And if you waste one on someone, you're not going to get it back until the following month. So I'm generally very cautious about who I send the messages to. Let's search here again. Let's see if there's a director. And if you can't find someone that says director or manager or something like that, you can start to default to a fallback on things like recruiter or talent. You can search for recruiter or search for talent or human resources or so. Let's see. Director of Consumer Engagement. Director of Product Development, maybe. Let's, here we are. UX Strategy and Design Director at Harley-Davidson. So this is the person that I would reach out to. And again, when you go to a company's career portal and you see that the first thing they want you to do is sign up and create an account, you run away. You run away as fast as you can and contact someone at that job first. The rule is never, ever, ever, ever fill out one of those long applications unless someone at that company specifically tells you to do so. Okay. Eventually you will, almost every time you will have to go in and put in an application, but let them tell you to do that first. Establish a contact, get them interested in you first, and then let them tell you, okay, in order for us to continue talking to you, we're going to need your application. Okay. All right. So that's that. All right. Now I'm going to jump back into the slides and we're going to wrap up. All right. So you found someone. Now what? What are you going to What are we going to say to this person after we've located them? That's the next big question, right? And remember, one more time, regardless of if you didn't apply on their company portal or you used Easy Apply or they had an easy application, you always are going to want to find someone. And here's what you do, right? Please take a screenshot of this, right? Y'all know what a cover letter is, right? And y'all have heard the nonsense out there that some people don't read cover letters, right? Because that is nonsense. Get that out of your head. This is the message. This is essentially a cover letter, right? If you hate them, okay, don't call it a cover letter. Call it a message. It doesn't matter. But this is your outreach, okay? This is what's going to separate you from the crowd. This is what keeps you from sending applications and resumes into the void and doing that hundreds and hundreds of times and getting nothing. Now, I had my own version of this, but another career coach on LinkedIn posted this in a post about 3 weeks ago and said it was free to use. And I actually thought it was better than mine. So here you go. Okay. Again, this is how you break through. It is not foolproof. Okay. Nothing works 100% of the time, but make sure that you customize this. Make sure you spend a decent amount of time on this so that it sounds like you. Okay. I want you to see this message from Reno Perry. If you're not following Reno, he's a good dude. And he's talking about his experience when he posts jobs of his own. And take a look at this. Take a screenshot of this too. Okay. On average, for every job that he posts, he'll get about 800 applicants. 20 of them, just 20, will message him directly. And out of those 20, 10 will actually spend some time to craft a nice message to him to sell themselves. Okay. And look who he says who got their resumes reviewed and interviewed, right? The folks who reached out to him by email. This is what happens every time. There's no way he got to all 800 of these people who applied. This is another one from Adam. Take a screenshot of this one too. This is another short message that you can use if you're more comfortable saying, getting to the point quickly. This is a good option to do that. Okay. And one more from Reno. This one, the numbers are even more kind of staggering, right? For one job, one post, over 1,400 applicants for just one job. Who got the interview? The first 200, that was all he could get to. And the approximate 20 people who messaged him directly. The rest of those 1,400s never stood a chance. Okay. I hope y'all are seeing why this is important. And I wanted to call attention to why I actually decided to do this webinar, right? Because I saw this post and, excuse me, this person is a first level connection. That's why I've got them censored. I don't want anyone to think that I'm calling this person out or trying to embarrass them. But what they're talking about here was they saw a job open up that was only a day old and had almost 1,000 applicants. A very emotional post of how do you be seen when that's going on? You don't. You don't. You do what I just showed you. This post, when I saw this, there were some helpful comments, right? Some folks giving them, do networking, right? There's a lot of some vague answers about networking and all that. And don't worry about networking. Just do what I showed you. But most of the comments were things like, "Oh, it'll be okay," and keep your chin up and keep at it and keep trying. No, don't fall into that fluffy, feel good bull crap. Okay, don't do it. Don't do it. That doesn't help you. That doesn't help anyone. You need to know specifically the steps to do to get out of the rut that you're in. I just showed you. Okay, you have to be able to separate your emotions from this. You have to be able to look at these things from an objective, high level. What are the things that I need to change so that I can get better at this? Wishing for luck is not going to do it. All right. We're at home stretch. Some senior level tricks, some things that I do when I'm doing my outreach. So if you remember, I told you when you see the entry form that they want you to sign up an account that you're going to run away like hell when you see that, you can craft something like this when you open your message, your outreach message, right? You can ask them, hey, are you still looking for someone to support your team? I had difficulty applying through your company portal, so I wanted to reach out to you directly. Now, let's be real here. This isn't exactly true. You could be a glass half empty kind of person and say it's not true at all. Or you can be a glass half full kind of person and say, well, company portals and ATSs are inherently difficult, so it's kind of true. Or you can be a glass half, I don't give a crap kind of person like I am. And remember what I said earlier in that the odds are not in your favor. So taking an extra step so that you can get what you need, I don't lose any sleep over it, and I don't think you should either. I play, a lot of people play chess. A lot of people play checkers. I play chess. And if I have to move a piece on the board when my opponent is not looking, I'll do that. I don't play fair. I play to win. Think about asking some questions when you message someone. Don't get too carried away with this because you will turn some folks off. I think I'm asking like 4 things in this. And this is stuff that I was able to suss out by looking at their website, maybe looking at some of the posts of the person I was reaching out to. You can kind of craft some things that you want to ask to kind of get them interested in talking to you. But again, don't go overboard here because you will turn people off if you're kind of giving them a job, so to speak. Okay. And use Calendly. When I was on the market a couple of months ago, I decided to start using Calendly because my inbox got kind of crazy and it was difficult for me to manage when recruiters were reaching out and wanting to know when I had time to talk. So, when that happens, you have to talk to one recruiter and say, I'll give you this day, this window of time. And then you can't necessarily give the same thing to another recruiter until that first recruiter gets back to you. And it's a big mess. You don't have to deal with that if you have a Calendly account. You just make a block of time and you set that aside for any time you want to interview, and you give that Calendly link to your recruiters or your hiring managers and let them pick the time. You don't have to manage time zones. You don't have to manage windows of time when you're available. It's super, super easy. Please make use of it. People actually love and appreciate when you do that. It makes their job a lot easier, and it makes your life a lot easier. It will save you some brain cells. Okay. If you want to do that, you can add this kind of message to the bottom of your outreach message. Tell them what you've got going on and give them the link. When you have the paid version of Calendly, you can do some additional things. Like I have the calendar invite that they receive has a link, has a Google Drive link to my resume, and they can choose whether they want to do a call over Zoom or do a phone call. And it also has a link to my portfolio. It's super easy for them. Okay, that, my friends, is the end of the material. I have one last thing, and I want to call your attention to the fact that my podcast, the UX Plus One podcast, is live as of today. The official launch was today. This is something that I was quietly working on through starts and stops for, about 2 years or so. The video version is live on YouTube right now. You can go and check that out. You can also go to the link on the screen and check out the audio stream. The streams to the major podcast networks are forthcoming. There's some admin work apparently that I still have to do for that. The show is pretty interesting. We discuss topics around UX careers in the industry, but we also have what we call our plus one, which is every week we invite a guest for folks who are probably just like anyone on this call, someone who is struggling with their careers, struggling to get their careers off the ground, struggling to get into the discipline. We go over their materials and give them some live coaching as part of the show. It's a really, really interesting format, and it's a really great setup. We have a good mix of experience between myself and my two co-hosts. It is a fabulous thing for me, and I would really love and appreciate it if you could all check that out, give me some support, and let me know what you think. Okay. And my friends, that is a wrap. That is all I have for you this evening.
Hey everyone, on behalf of IterateUX, we would like to thank you so much for watching this week's event. If you like the content, please leave a like and subscribe. We'll have events every Thursday at 5:30 Pacific Time. Join our Discord in the description to find out more.